to the gospel lesson for today, I wanted to first share with you all. I try to do this when I have the chance, but we got a really kind thank you note from Clemson Downs because of all the folks who did Christmas caroling there. And I'll hang it on the bulletin board out here. I just wanted to mention that because I think a lot of times there are people in our community who are very thankful for what you do as a church. And sometimes it's important to hear that. So I just want to lift that up. Thanks for those who went caroling. Made a difference there. As you are able, I invite you to please stand as we hear our gospel reading today. And I made a little change, so instead of reading verses 29 through 42, I'm going to instead read 35 through 46. So most of the same story, but a little bit added in. The next day, John again was standing with two of his disciples. And as he watched Jesus walk by, he exclaimed, "Look, here is the Lamb of God." The two disciples heard him say this, and they followed Jesus. When Jesus turned and saw them following, he said to them, "What are you looking for?" They said to him, "Rabbi," which translated means teacher, "where are you staying?" He said to them, "Come and see." They came and saw where he was staying, and they remained with him that day. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. One of the two who heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first found his brother Simon and said to him, "We have found the Messiah," which is translated anointed. He brought Simon to Jesus, who looked at him and said, "You are Simon, son of John. You are to be called Cephas," which is translated Peter. The next day Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." This is the word of God for all of us, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Please be seated. Let us pray. Lord, speak through me or speak in spite of me, but speak, O Lord. For we, your children, long to hear a word from you. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So from what I understand, there was some kind of football game this past Monday night. And I almost made it to the end of the game. Some of you may have watched it. Some of you were even there. And one of my favorite parts of a football game, at least if it's a close game, is the last 2 to 3 minutes of each half. And you've seen the scenario before. The offense has to drive like 80 yards to get a touchdown or a field goal to get ahead or to win. And there isn't much time on the clock left, and so they have a long way to go. It would seem as though it would be impossible for them to score. But, almost without fail, luckily for the team on offense, the defense is about to do one of the strangest, most nonsensical things that happens anywhere in sports. Rather than sticking with the defensive game plan that has worked for the entire half, the entire game, the defense decides they're going to switch into what's known as the prevent defense. Now, if you aren't familiar with this, I think it's called the prevent defense because it's supposed to prevent the offense from scoring, but most of the time the only thing it prevents is the team that uses it from winning, it seems. If you aren't familiar, in the prevent defense, the defenders stand farther back than they normally would, and they allow the offense to get short runs and short completions in front of them, rather than risking having a long play over the top of them. The goal of running this kind of defense is that hopefully by having to run a lot of short plays in front of the defense, the offense will run out of time before they have the chance to score. Basically, the defense looks at the offense and says, "You do your thing, and then if and when you come to us, we'll do our job." And then the defenders just sit back and wait for the offense bikes usually don't have a lead to protect, so I don't know why dig that hole a little deeper. All right. But we can laugh about teams getting burned by using what's called the prevent defense. But I believe that for perhaps generations, the Church of Jesus Christ, Church with a capital C, has oftentimes fallen into running what you might call prevent Christianity. That brand of religion in which we, the church, sit back and let others come to us. The approach of making disciples where we allow others to do their thing, and if and when they come to us, then we'll do our job. And all I think it has done for generations to the church is to allow the church with a capital C to keep from fulfilling the command Jesus has given us to make disciples or followers of Jesus Christ. Now, I grew up in the church. I've lived my whole life being part of the local churches, and I can remember a day, even in my relatively short lifetime, because I'm only 12, give or take 20-something years. But I remember a day when we at church would just assume that if our doors were open or even just unlocked, people would come. We didn't have to invite people because we just knew they would show up, because they would value what we knew was important. We didn't have to be in a relationship with people outside of the church. Like the prevent defense in football, we would just sit back and let them come to us, and when they did, we would wrap our arms around them, not to tackle them, right? But in most cases. But to embrace them with love. This has been the church's, with a capital C, model of evangelism and discipleship for so long in many places that it's easy to forget that that is not how Jesus taught or modeled what it means to make disciples of Jesus Christ. In Jesus' day, people, for the most part, didn't get Sunday mornings off from work. Most of the people who did were people who didn't have jobs. In fact, the whole concept of a weekend, when Jesus was around, was still about 1,900 years in the making. People might have shown up from time to time to hear Jesus preach and teach out of curiosity about this thing that was novel and new to them, but they most certainly didn't show up and listen to him out of some sense of religious devotion. If they wanted that, they could have just gone to the local synagogue. In other words, people would not hear Jesus' message of love and grace unless he went to where people were. Because people were not just going to show up and come to him. The next time you read any of the Gospels, I invite you to look through and find how few times Jesus teaches and preaches in the synagogue or the temple, and how much more often Jesus teaches and preaches out where people already are, outside, among crowds, in people's homes, around the table. Almost never did Jesus stay and teach and preach within a religious building like a synagogue or temple, waiting for people to come back. And we see this in the way Jesus called his very first followers or disciples. While the gospel writers disagree on some of the details, they all agree that Jesus called his first disciples out in a public place where he was sure to encounter other people rather than confining himself to the walls of a religious building. According to John's gospel, Jesus was passing in front of John the Baptist one day. He was standing with two of his own followers. And those two followers of John had heard John talk about Jesus and about how John wasn't the one they were waiting for, but Jesus was, and how Jesus was so much greater than the one they were following. And so they left John, and they followed Jesus. John had been outside of the religious buildings and told people about Jesus, and those people chose to follow when he came. When those first followers saw what it was like to follow Jesus, they didn't just say, "Oh, great, this is wonderful. The three of us are going to have a really good time together." No, they copied what Jesus had first done to them. One of the first followers, Andrew, ran home and found his brother Simon Peter, and he said, "Dude," that's not in the translation of the Bible we read from today, but that is probably what he said. "Dude, you've got to come see what I have found." In other words, invited him to come be part of this thing. Regardless of what evangelism and discipleship have become in recent decades and even centuries in the church, at the very beginning it's clear that following Jesus necessarily meant seeking out others, not inside but outside of the church, and inviting them to follow Jesus too, rather than waiting for them to just show up. It's a process that I've sometimes described as accidental discipleship, right? Maybe somebody will show up. And maybe if they do, then maybe they'll get plugged into a Sunday school class. And if they do, then maybe they'll become a disciple. I think it's true to say that you and I are here today because those first disciples, because Andrew told Peter, come and see. And then those next disciples found somebody else and said, come and see. And they made disciples who made disciples who made disciples until someday somebody invited us. So how do we do that? How do we go beyond the church walls and invite people to be part of what we have seen? Now I'm going to share a few ideas that I've tried myself and seen myself, and I'll let you judge whether or not they are good approaches or the best approaches. So I've seen where sometimes we ignore the historical fact that Jesus did not have a marketing budget for his movement. And so we put up billboards and advertisements all over the place so that people out there will see and they'll come to us without us ever having to go out there and actually be in a relationship with them. Or we ignore the historical fact that Jesus, our primary example for disciple making, never started a single program. And so we create programs that we think will attract other people to where we are. As a wise person once said about this approach, what you reach people with is what you reach people for. If we reach people with promises of these programs that will entertain, then all we've saved them from is boredom and nothing more. Sometimes I've seen churches use the old bait and switch trick where we invite people to something that sounds like a whole lot of fun and that sounds like it has nothing to do with religion, and then when we show up we switch and spring Jesus on them instead as though they can't see through that. Or finally, sometimes we go to where other people are, but not in an invitational posture, but rather to argue them into believing what we, as God would call the right ones, right, believe. God wouldn't say that, we do. Those are just some of the approaches I've seen. But as you might have guessed, none of those approaches for welcoming new disciples into the family of Christ work particularly well, at least not on their own. Not only that, but they aren't incredibly faithful to the example that Jesus set for us. Now, I will say advertising has its place. Certainly in the age we live in, social media has its place. But those things are not substitutes for relationship. They exist to complement relationship with others. Jesus began with relationship. Rather than passively waiting for people to come to him, he went to them and extended the invitation. He didn't argue with them and tell them why he was right and they were wrong. He didn't promise them a life of fun and excitement only to switch on them when they followed and tell them, oh no, you got to carry the cross. No, he simply said 3 words, and they're 3 words that all of us can have memorized before we go out of these doors today. Come and see. Come and see. Come and see something that defies explanation, I think is what Jesus meant. Come and see love and grace lived out in ways that cannot adequately be described by words. Come and see a community that will change your concept of what the word community even means. Come and see this thing that means so much to me that you just have to see it for yourself. Come and see was his invitation. It's the same invitation that those first followers turned around and extended to people they knew who were not already part of that movement. Christ has found each of us wherever we already were. And through someone who cared about us, perhaps a parent or a grandparent or a coach or a teacher or a pastor or a neighbor, he invited us to be part of this great family that is called the body of Christ, the church, the family of faith. And friends, because we have been found, part of our task is to be the hands and feet of Christ in the world by going to where others already are sitting back and waiting for them to come to us. And to be the voice of Jesus Christ in their lives as they hear the words, "Come and see," from us. Now, one of the things you might not be able to tell by looking at me is that I love to eat. I love restaurants, all right? And if I try a restaurant that I like a lot, then I will tell anyone, friend, family, stranger, sometimes even foes, to come try it out. I've been known to tell people, if you're looking for a place where your kids can play games and watch the trains go by and eat a good hot dog, come and see the Depot Dog. It's great. Are you looking for some really good donuts and to support a local business, not so much to support your New Year's resolutions? There's a really good donut place right over here. It's delicious. Come and see it. If you want a place where your kids can eat free any day of the week, come and see Charlie's. It's in Anderson, but it's free for kids. Come and see. By the way, this sermon was not sponsored by these businesses. But likewise, I've had a lot of people from this church and pastor friends of mine in the community who have recommended restaurants to our family, which we have been happy to go try out on our own. Do you like Mexican food? Harris said y'all should go to Fiesta Grill. Do you like Mexican food and ice cream? Go to Poncho's. Do you want the best Thai food you've ever had that's served inside a gas station? Come and see the new Thai place by Southern Wesley. By the way, we did, and it was good. Want really good home cooking? Come and see Central Station Cafe or Diners on the way to Seneca or Diners in Seneca. Come and see. Nothing like making me hungry during a sermon there. Now here's why I share all that. Because friends, if we can't help but invite others to come and see eating establishments that haven't done a whole lot for us other than make our taste buds happy for a few moments, then how much more is God calling us to go to where friends and family and strangers and even foes are, and to invite them to come and see what we have found in the one who has first found us. To come and see a community in which we experience not only God's presence, but also God's love. In a divided world, to come and see a foretaste of God's kingdom in which Democrats and Republicans not only tolerate one another, but actually love one another. And in which forgiveness and service and mercy and grace are not just bygones from another era, but are actually lived out today in a world that so desperately needs them. Now, in a moment, I'm going to do something a little different. I know you're never allowed to do anything different in church, but suspend that belief for just a moment. In a moment, the ushers are going to come out and hand out some little cards. And I'm going to invite you to pass those around. There should be enough for everybody today. And Barbara's going to play some music. Before the service, she said she was going to tinkle on the keys. I said, well, if you do that, clean it up afterwards. But she's going to play some music on the piano. And what I want you to do, nice story under the bus.
Good segue.
Yeah. But on each card, there's a blank at the top. And what I want you to do is write down the name of a person who you commit to pray for and to at some point invite to come and see what you have found in this community that has shaped who you are as a follower of Jesus Christ. Now, what I don't want you to do is to write the name of someone who already goes to church somewhere else. That's what we preachers call sheep stealing. Don't do that. We're talking about new disciples. But it could be a family member or a neighbor or a stranger or a friend or other acquaintance. It could be someone who doesn't look like or talk like most of the rest of us here. But whoever it is, it should be someone who you think would benefit from whatever it is you have found here that keeps you coming back for more. It should be someone who you want to make sure knows, like you do, that they are a beloved child of God, a member of God's family. It should be someone who could use the experience of love and grace that you have found in this place. Now, once you've written their name down, what I'm going to invite you to do and challenge you to do is to seek that person out, even within the next week, and to invite them to come and see this community. I know this is uncomfortable for some people, so if you need more than a week to do that, to get up your nerve or whatever, to plan out what you're going to say, then I invite you to at least go on and begin praying for them. That they might find that they are a beloved child of God through your witness and through the witness of this community. Pray for yourself that you would grow as a disciple who makes disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples. And pray for the church that we might be a community that helps others to be disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples. My friends, you are part of this great family called the Church of Jesus Christ by the invitation of Jesus himself, who has said to each of us, come and see. Friends, now it is your turn, as it has always been each of our turns, to share that message of invitation to others who desperately need to hear it. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Give this to me or show it to anybody else. But put it in a place where you will see it and be reminded of it, whether that's maybe for you it's in your Bible or on the mirror that you use to get ready every morning, or in your car, or somewhere where you will see it. And be reminded of the commitment you make to pray for and be invitational towards whoever that is who God has put on your heart to reach out to and share that love with. As we continue our worship now, I invite you, as you are able, to please stand as we sing our closing hymn, He Leadeth Me, 128.
Thank you.
family of Christ in which Christ does indeed lead us. Go forth from this place to remember those people, those voices that long ago told you, come and see. And be re-energized and reinvigorated for the work of extending that same invitation to others who want to hear it too. Amen.